It's early 1995 and, for want of something better to do and without anybody being particularly interested in what I was up to, I found myself at a crossroads. If not a crossroads, then at the very least I was at a junction. 20 years in a game and I wasn't getting any younger. I was pushing 40, but I still felt just as restless as I had when I started out on this road. Still, I hadn't been idle. Hopefully that's not something you could ever accuse me of. I was still chipping away at my craft. Over the past year or so, I'd put pen to paper on a bunch of songs that I thought were pretty good. It's not an earth-shattering observation to make, but if you're a fisherman, you better get that boat out to sea and catch some fish. If you're a centre forward, you better get down the pitch and score a few goals. By the same token, if you call yourself a songwriter and don't write any songs, you're full of shit. Writing songs is item number 1 on the songwriter's job description. What you do with them afterwards, well, that's up to you. Usually, you record them yourself, or occasionally you might pitch them to other artists, depending on how they come out. In this case, I had the songs earmarked for myself. Possibly this new batch of songs wasn't suited to anyone else anyway. I don't know. Looking back, maybe they were a bit too much like me, too personal for somebody else to record a cover. Whatever the case, I had all these songs knocking around in my head and they didn't have a home. I laid down a rough batch of demos, but despite all of that, I couldn't really think straight. The only way to clear out the wardrobe of your mind, as the great Vivian Stanshall put it, for me at least, is to start recording. Decluttering, they call it these days. So that's what I did. I made a start clearing out the proverbial wardrobe. I gathered up all the songs and the demos and I set about making a new record. Writing songs is like a kind of therapy for me. Something's on your mind, you work on it. All the blood, sweat and artistic angst go into the pot and then it's out there in the world. It can be quite healthy to clear the decks. In terms of percentage, my guess is there are probably far fewer songwriters going into therapy than the rest of the population. Having said that, I didn't really know how or when the record was going to come out, or even if anybody would be bothered. But I got underway nonetheless. Fortunately, I didn't have to wait too long for the record to find a home. As always, I was looking forward, but I had no idea that the past was about to come a-knocking. But we'll come to that. I'm friends with a guy called Tony Barber. Tony was playing bass with the Buzzcocks around that time in the 1990s. He played with and was a fan of the band The Creation, the legendary British mod band from the 1960s. The Creation had a minor hit with the song Painter Man back in the day, but it went on to be a smash hit for Boney M a few years later. Tony called and told me he had a couple of tickets to see a Creation show at the Mean Fiddler in Holsden, so I tagged along. It was a good night. While we were milling about, we had a chance meeting with Alan McGee, the head of Creation Records. Alan had named his record label after the band, so of course he was there. When the band were persuaded to reform in the mid-1990s, he even signed them to his label. That led to the Creation releasing a single called Creation on the label Creation the year before. Make of that what you will. This was at a time when Creation Records were riding high and everything they touched turned to gold, so they could do those kinds of pet projects without getting any flack. The whole Cool Britannia thing was just starting to take off, and Tony Blair and New Labour were waiting in the wings, as John Major's government was being kept on life support. Oasis were literally everywhere and shifting a lot of records and generally making bank for Creation Records. Fair play to Alan. Despite all that glory, he was still an A&R guy at heart, and he always kept his ear to the ground. He struck me as someone who never rested on his laurels. Tony introduced Alan to me, and Alan, being an old punk, we got talking. He loved the Pistols, so he was keen to hear a few old war stories from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Eventually, he asked what I was up to now, and I told him about the new record I was working on and that I didn't have a home for it yet. Right on the spot, Alan said he put the record out on Creation. So, from that point on, Alan took over. I signed a deal with Creation, and I finished recording the album. It's a good record. If I'm going to be self-critical, maybe my singing wasn't so great back then, but I'm proud of the album Who's He Think He Is when he's at home.